Hello, everybody. This is Mike History 2, and I am going to be redoing my pretty popular series about the worst people in history. For those of you who didn't watch this back when my old channel hadn't been banned yet, basically, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 worst people in history. Um, of course, like, this is going to be controversial because everyone has a different opinion about who is the worst person, what's how you define that. But this is just my opinion, so if you disagree with me, don't just get too angry. Just write why you disagree in the comment section, and otherwise, let's get to it. So I'm going to start off with number 10, and number 10 is Joseph Stalin. But I've already made like, 7 videos about him, so yeah, I'm not going to talk about him because you guys already know about him, and if you don't, just watch those videos. So now we're going to go to number 9, and that is Charles Cornwallis versus Marquess Cornwallis. So I think a lot of you guys probably never heard of him, and if you have, then you haven't heard that much. So let's get into this. So Charles Cornwallis, first Marquess Cornwallis, was born in London, Great Britain, of course now in the UK, on December 31st, 1738. So he was the son of Charles Cornwallis, first Earl Cornwallis, and his wife Elizabeth. So he obtained his first military commission as an ensign on December 8th, 1757. He then engaged in military studies abroad. After traveling across Europe, he studied at the Military Academy of Turin. After completing his studies in Turin in 1758, he traveled to Geneva, where he learned that British troops were to be sent to mainland Europe in the 7 Years' War. Although he tried to reach his regiment before it sailed from the Isle of Wight, he learnt upon reaching Cologne that it had already sailed. A year later, he participated at the Battle of Minden. After the battle, he became a captain, and in 1761 he was promoted to brevet lieutenant colonel. He led his regiment in the Battle of Willinghausen between July 15th and 16th, 1761, and was noted for his bravery. In 1762, his regiment was involved in heavy fighting during the Battle of Wilhelmsthal. A few weeks later, they defeated Saxon troops at the Battle of Lutterberg and ended the year by participating in the Siege of Kassel. In January 1760, Cornwallis became a member of Parliament, entering the House of Commons. He succeeded his father, second Earl Cornwallis, in 1762, which resulted in his elevation to the House of Lords. On July 14, 1768, he married Jemima Tullikin Jones, and they settled in Culford, Suffolk, where their children, Mary and Charles, were born. Well, they all call each other Charles. So during the post-war years, Cornwallis had remained active in the military. He became a colonel in 1766. On September 29, 1775, he was promoted to Major General. And with the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War, Cornwallis sought active service and proposed an expedition to the southern colonies, for which he would become most famous. Promoted to Lieutenant General in North America, he began his service in 1776 under General Henry Clinton with the failed siege of Charleston. He and Clinton then sailed for New York City, where they participated in General William Howe, 5th Viscount Howe's campaign for New York City. Cornwallis was often given a leading role during this campaign. His division was in the lead at the Battle of Long Island, and he chased the retreating George Washington across New Jersey after the city fell. Wow, it's almost like George Washington was surrendering because he was allied with the French. Who knew? General Howe granted Cornwallis leave in December 1776. However, it was cancelled after Washington launched his surprise attack on Trenton on December 26th. Howe ordered Cornwallis to return to New Jersey to deal with Washington, but Cornwallis just responded by saying, "How? Ha ha ha." Okay, whatever, I should get to the rest of this. Cornwallis gathered together garrisons scattered across New Jersey and moved them towards Trenton. On January 2nd, 1777, as he advanced on Trenton, his forces were engaged in something that was definitely not a New Year's celebration, and was instead extended skirmishing that delayed the army's arrival at Washington's position on the Assunpink Creek until late in the day. Cornwallis was unable to move Washington in the battle that followed. Cornwallis prepared his troops to continue the assault of Washington's position the next day, but failed to send out enough patrols to monitor the Americans. During the night, Washington forces slipped around Cornwallis's and attacked the British outpost at Princeton. Cornwallis spent the winter in New York and New Jersey, where the forces under his command were engaged in ongoing skirmishes with the Americans. Cornwallis continued to serve under Howe on his campaign for control of the rebel capital, Philadelphia. Cornwallis was again often in an advanced role, playing an important role in the battles of Brandywine, Germantown, and Fort Mercer. With an army in winter quarters in Philadelphia, Cornwallis finally returned home for leave. Upon his return in 1778, Howe had been replaced by Clinton as commander-in-chief and soon president. And Cornwallis was now second in command. The entry of France into the war prompted the British leaders to laugh at them and call them surrendering to redeploy their armed forces for a more global war, and Philadelphia was abandoned. Cornwallis played an important role in the Battle of Monmouth on June 28, 1778. After a surprise attack on the British rearguard, Cornwallis launched a counterattack which stopped the enemy advance. In November 1778, Cornwallis once more returned to England to be with his sick wife Jemima, who died in February 1779. So Cornwallis returned to the United States that July, where he was to play a central role as the main commander of the British Southern Strategy, which was to invade the southern United States on the assumption that a more loyalist population would rise up and assist in putting the rebellion down. At the end of 1779, Henry Clinton and Cornwallis transported a large force south and started the second siege of Charleston during the spring of 1780. Wow, it's kind of weird, Charles Cornwallis attacking Charleston. Maybe he went there on purpose. You never know. Now, this resulted in the surrender of the American forces under Benjamin Lincoln. After the siege of Charleston and the destruction of Abraham Buford's Virginia regiments at Waxhaw, Clinton returned to New York, leaving Cornwallis in command in the South. Now, the task Clinton left Cornwallis was to investigate whether Russia was to preserve the gains made by taking Charleston and only then engage in attacking. However, Clinton proved Cornwallis with a relatively small force of about 3,000 men with which to accomplish all of this. The forces he was given to accomplish this were limited by the necessity of keeping the large British force in New York under Clinton to shadow Washington. Cornwallis was expected to recruit more loyalists who were believed to be more numerous in the southern United States. Well, I guess they never met Canadians. In August 1780, Cornwallis's forces met a larger army under the command of Horatio Gates at the Battle of Camden, where they inflicted heavy casualties and routed part of the force. This served to keep South Carolina clear of American forces and a blow to American morale. As the opposition seemed to melt away, Cornwallis began to advance north into, you guessed it, North Carolina, while militias continued to harass the troops he left in South Carolina. Attempts by Cornwallis to rally loyalist support were dealt significant blows when a large gathering of them was defeated at Kings Mountain, and another large detachment of his army was decisively defeated at Cowpens. He then clashed with the rebuilt American army under General Nathanael Greene, who actually wasn't green, he was white, but at Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina, winning a Pyrrhic victory with a bayonet charge against a larger enemy. Cornwallis then moved his forces to Wilmington on the coast to resupply. Cornwallis himself had generally been successful in his battles, but the constant marching and the losses incurred had shrunk and tired out his army. Greene, who, by the way, still wasn't green, his army was intact after the loss at Guilford Courthouse, and he shadowed Cornwallis towards Wilmington, but then crossed into South Carolina. Cornwallis received dispatches in Wilmington informing him that another British army under Generals William Phillips and Benedict Arnold had been sent to Virginia. He decided to join forces with Phillips. On arrival in Virginia, Cornwallis took command of Phillips's army. He then raided the Virginia countryside, destroying American targets. In March 1781, General Washington had dispatched Guibert du Moutier, Marquis de Lafayette, to defend Virginia. Lafayette skirmished with Cornwallis, avoiding the decisive battle because, he's French, so he was too scared to actually attack. Okay, anyways, I should stop this. While gathering reinforcements, Cornwallis eventually received firm orders from Clinton to choose a position on the Virginia Peninsula and construct a fortified naval post to shelter ships. In complying with this order, Cornwallis put himself in a position to become trapped. With the arrival of the French fleet under General François-Joseph Paul de Grasse and General Washington's combined French-American army, Cornwallis found himself cut off. After the Royal Navy fleet under Admiral Thomas Graves was defeated by the French at the Battle of the Chesapeake, his position became untenable. He surrendered after about 3 weeks of siege to General Washington and the French commander Jean-Baptiste Donatien de Vimeur, Comte de Rochambeau. Wow, that's weird, the British surrendering to the French, on October 19, 1781. Now, Cornwallis returned to Britain with Benedict Arnold. Although his surrender did not mark the end of the war, it ended major fighting in the American theater. Because he was released on parole, Cornwallis refused to serve again until the war came to an end in 1783.